Hi, and welcome to BevCam's production of Conversation with the Candidates. I'm your host, Andi Freedman, and today we're talking with John Mullady, who is running for Ward 4 City Councilor. John, it's so nice to see you.
Happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so for those viewers who don't know a lot about you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is John, and Liz, my wife, and I, we live over on Corning Street. I am a high school history teacher at Manchester Essex High School. I teach 9th and 10th grade. What got me into running for politics is I grew up, always wanted to be involved, always wanted to help out. My parents taught me that actions speak louder than words. So my father, who's a New York City fireman, I would watch him go through a 48-hour shift and then see him volunteer at a PAL football game, or see him volunteer as a coach or being one of the people to clean up after some sort of sporting event. And my mom volunteered as a member of the PTA, so one of those lessons just kind of stuck with me. So all your parents who are making a good impact on your kids, it pays off, trust me.
Great, well thank you for that. So why are you running for office, other than the fact that you want to give back to the community, which you just said?
Giving back to the community is absolutely essential, and I'm running for office because through conversations with residents in Montserrat and the Cove, in their homes and in their living rooms, I've figured out that there's a need for a new voice on City Council. There's a need for a more open and transparent City Council. And one of the things that I would like to do, and I've spoken to residents about, is imagine if the Ward 4 councilor would have open house meetings, office hours basically, where after a particular vote, the Ward 4 councilor, an at-large candidate, councilor, would have a meeting, whether it's the Cove or at the library, and say, you know, this is what we talked about at City Council, this is where I stand on it, this is how I'm thinking about voting, but I want to open up to you. What do the residents have to say about that? And that's been, I think, one of the biggest criticisms that I've heard, which has made me want to run.
Okay, so what would be your first item of business? Do you have something in mind that you're passionate about that you'd like to bring to the City Council?
Other than the open house meetings, I think that we live in a city that it is essential to work with the students who go to Montserrat, Endicott, or Gordon, or commute to Salem State. And I know that Amherst has something they call the Towns and Gowns program, and it originally started to bring businesses from the schools downtown. What I would like to do is have an organization set up where it's residents working with college kids as well as city officials to help alleviate some of the conflicts that have taken place that students live off campus. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I was no saint when I was in college. I made some pretty dumb decisions, and I think that if I was talking to one of the neighbors of a community that I was living in, it would probably change the way I would have acted. Maybe I would have toned down some of the adult beverage consumptions that were taking place. And I know in Ward 4 that's been a particular issue, and I've spoken with some of the college kids that, who go to Montserrat about that. I've spoken with Dr. Wiley, and he's completely endorsed this idea. Okay.
What about budgets? Have you had a lot of experience with budgets? And if so, you know, how would you, let me rephrase that. Fiscal responsibility is a term that comes up all the time. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts about that?
My thoughts about that is, like a person, a city needs to live within its means. And one of the things that I figured out after becoming a parent for the first time is that your expenses has to change dramatically. So we're on a budget. I think most people who live in Beverly are on a budget. We want to make sure that the city lives on its budget. So there are times where I would want a new pair of shoes, and you know, you have to resist that temptation to go down, use a credit card, or just try to tough it out for a little bit. We made some small little decisions. We go to Market Basket, save some money that way. There are ways I think the city can do that as well. And I think it comes down to prioritizing what we're going to do, what we need to do. To help increase the budget, I think one of the things that we can do as a community is let's get more people to come downtown, increase the tax revenue, and have people think that downtown is much larger than a small part of Cabot Street I think most people associate it with.
So do you have some ideas about how to do that, or how to influence the City Council to get on board with that?
Well, I'm a history teacher and just straight up history nerd. We have such a strong connection with Salem's history, having Reverend Hale's farm right here in downtown in Ward 2. And I would like to work with the Salem Board of Tourism, work with some of the trolleys there. If we can get some of those trolleys to go from Salem, cross the bridge over, have them see Reverend Hale's house, think about how that could get some of those tourists to stay there for a little bit. So in terms of working with our neighbor across the bridge would be one way.
So you're talking about that's one way to get more revenue into
To get
the
more
city.
revenue in.
And you were talking about also belt tightening. Do you have suggestions on where the city would tighten its belt? Because it's always tight, right? So
I mean, I don't want to say, a broad statement without actually looking at the budget. One way would tighten the belt if, I'm fortunate enough to be elected. I won't take a salary. I don't see it as a need to spend a couple, $1,000s for someone who wants to give back. And if I'm saying I'm going to give back, well, why not? So I just saved, if I won, $1,600 a year for this city.
okay, so just to reframe it, what would you think the top 2 or 3 budget issues are in the city right now?
I think when it comes down to is we have a large number of city employees who are retiring. We have a very large number of people who are working in different parts of the city, looking at their pension plans, looking at their benefits. I know one of the questions that I'm asked by the Beverly Citizen and the Salem News is, would you take the city's health care coverage? And that's something that I think is a way that we look at it. What are we spending on health care benefits? But to be honest, and I won't pretend I'm some sort of expert on belt tightening or anything like that, that's what I would start with, is just looking at the books and see, all right, what are our expenses? Just like you would open up a bank account for a business. All right, if you're losing money, where are we losing money? What are the ways we can move some funds around?
Have you worked with an institutional budget before?
I have not, no.
Okay. All right. So what would you think are the biggest issues for the city right now? Like, what's your, not only what your constituents are saying, but just in general?
In 2011, when this question was asked, it was the waterfront.
Okay.
What you would do for the waterfront, and as of right now, it's pretty much stayed the same, and I feel like that issue has taken a back burner because of what's going on with the Brimble Avenue project. And the Brimble Avenue project has opened up an excellent opportunity for people to take a good look at our city, and city councils take a good reflection at themselves and say, are we providing the most adequate open services for the people living within our community? And I would say that that is our #1 priority. Today in the Beverly Citizen, every candidate said the same thing. They want to have a more open city government. What I would like to do is I spelt out the plan on how we can have a more open city government. So I would say that would be the #1 priority. Continuing to improve the city's downtown, continuing to improve the city's waterfront. Those would be the top 3.
Okay, so do you have ideas about the waterfront, or what do you see as the roadblocks to improving the waterfront?
One of my ideas for improving the waterfront is we have something throughout parts of downtown on the waterfront called the Privateer Trail. I don't know if you had an opportunity to take a look at that, but it really ties in Beverly's very rich maritime history. Set up like the Freedom Trail, set up like the trail that they have over in Salem. I think we need to involve, different types of groups to fix up that trail a little bit, make it more accessible, have residents know that this trail exists. And once you have people from out of town coming into the city, then that would be a way where we can have people walk around downtown and have access to the waterfront that way.
Have you worked with any of the existing groups, or do you know about the other existing groups that have been working on?
I'm a member of 30 in Maine. I'm also one of the members of the Beverly Historical Society, and I'm on the board for bringing in new members. So it's through conversations like this with different groups where you can have different brainstorming activities, because everyone wants the same thing. You want the city to be the best it possibly can be. What it comes down to is trying to get what would be the best way for that to happen. What's the method for that to happen?
Any thoughts about that? You want to elaborate on that, or
in terms of
what's the best way?
I think the best way is obviously getting people to come downtown, but getting people to stay downtown. I thought what Beverly Main Street did with the block party was absolutely awesome. I had a great time.
It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, and I know they're talking about doing more events like that, and that gets a couple hundred people downtown that you don't normally have.
Yeah.
The Beverly YMCA has a road race series that goes downtown 2 different times during the year. I think this would be an opportunity if different restaurant groups talk to the Y about having restaurants sponsor coupons or discounts for runners that are there. If you can think about it, on a Saturday afternoon, you have 600 people in downtown Beverly that probably normally wouldn't be there on that day in December. So there are ideas that we can use already existing programs and events that we have to try to include more people.
Okay, so you mentioned the Brimble Avenue project.
Yes.
And that's the hot topic right now. So what are your thoughts about it, and how would you address, it's pretty controversial, so how
Yes.
would you address both sides of the issue?
So as a member of the planning board, this was a decision that I did not take lightly, nor did anyone else on the planning board. We looked at months and months of information. We heard from people from the state. We heard from people from the Department of Environmental Services, engineers, you name it. We went and did a site visit. We spoke with residents. It was a really tough decision to make, but at the end of the day, when I voted for my recommendation to the City Council, it was a recommendation to improve and focus on the city's roads. That's what my vote was. That was what was behind my vote.
Okay.
In terms of the plaza development and increasing traffic, I look at this as a positive way. I think it woke up a lot of people in the city, and it's going to make more of our elected officials more accountable. I'm hoping it inspires people to write letters and get involved in the different boards, whether it's the zoning board, the planning board, the environmental commission, whatever the case may be. And I'm positive that once these developers go through the right circles to get this project approved of, because it's far from being done, that'll be done in an appropriate way.
Okay, so in addition to the Brimble Avenue project, there has been a lot of talk throughout the years about a new police station, a new fire station, what to do with some old buildings that we have that are empty. Do you have any thoughts about that, or what you would do about that?
My father is a retired New York City firefighter, and I just remember hearing his horror stories about what his building was like before the city gave them a new one. So I can only imagine what these firemen must be going through in terms of what the conditions are of that site. It needs to happen, and with the Brimble Avenue project potentially bringing in all new revenue, that's going to make projects like that possible. That's where the city could live within its means. As a high school history teacher, as a former middle school teacher, the city needs a new middle school. I've been to Briscoe, and I think that's something that all the people who are there, whether the students or the teachers or the staff, would agree upon. I would love to have a say in what that school would look like. I think I would bring a lot to that type of conversation. I think it would be an excellent opportunity to take Briscoe if they decide to redo Memorial, which it sounds like that's what's going to happen. And they can turn those into luxury condominiums or apartment buildings. I know that's what happened in different communities along Massachusetts. And to be honest, that's a fantastic place to live. You're walking distance to downtown, you're walking distance to the train station. I don't have my realtor's license, but that's what I'm assuming would go in the write-up.
Yeah. So you support a new middle school?
I support a new middle school. I support a new police station, a new fire station. If these are, some of them are city residents, if they're going to risk their lives and put their personal life on the line to make our lives better, I think it's, the least we can do is give back to them.
So I'm going to turn it back to budget.
Sure.
Because that's probably the constraint there.
Yep.
So priorities of the budget, would you put that very high? What do you, other than bringing more tourists in, that may not in itself get us where we need to be
Yes.
to get those things done. So what do you think about, what are the priorities of the budget that?
I would say that number one for me as a teacher would be the schools, and that is completely showing my bias. And I think that when you ask people why they moved to Beverly, you're going to hear a number of different reasons. I would like the number one reason why people move to Beverly is to be the public school system. That's what's going to increase property value. That's going to get new people to come here, and that's what's going to create honest, genuine growth. And then once you have people coming here, then you can see certain store fronts fill up downtown. People don't follow stores, stores follow people. And I think that's going to be key to our city's development.
Okay. All right, since we're talking about schools, what do you think the influence that a city councilor has on the schools? And we're not really talking about so much the building, because that's more of a city side thing, but if you think that the schools could be improved so that people say, oh yes, the schools are why I moved here, what would your influence be? Or
What I would absolutely love to do is give different short talks to the faculty and staff of the schools in Beverly and say that we are invested in you. We believe that you can do the best job possible. We want to give you the tools to make this happen. In order to do that, we need to hear from you. I would like to include them in a conversation. I love visiting classrooms of subjects that I don't know anything about. As a former summer school scholar, it just blows my mind to watch someone teach science or math to a group of teenagers. I would like to see, you know, what are ways that, what tactics those teachers are using for our students at Beverly. As a history teacher, as a member of the Historical Society, I think it would be a fantastic opportunity to include local history in the curriculum. I know the Historical Society would love to get some high school students and middle school students down there. This would also be a good opportunity for teachers to get professional development that they need. It's a state mandate in ways that you're not only improving the city, you're improving yourself, and the kids are going to be directly benefiting from that.
And so what you said, that to give them the tools and resources that they need, does that mean if they need more money for professional development or, you know, or whatever, that you would vote for allocating the schools more money? Or, I mean, that's always a big fight, you know, about
I'm gonna
city side versus school side.
I'm going to paraphrase Jim Latter, who said that we're not in a community that would do well with an override issue, implying that there's no way an override would pass in Beverly. And what we need to do is figure out ways where there are probably, and I'm going to take that back, there are ways where we can improve curriculum with tools and resources that are already there. But you can also apply for different types of federal grants. Well, maybe not now with the federal government shut down, but state.
not today, but
but federal programs, state programs. It comes down to, we need to look for money for our schools to come from the state. If the state's going to require students to learn a certain subject matter, then the state should help us out and find out ways where we can do that. I've spoken with a few teachers in the public school system, and I'm very, you know, happy to have conversations with them about what are tactics that they're doing in Beverly, tactics that I'm doing up in Manchester and Essex, and to see, you know, where do we have in common, how can we go forward from there.
So, I'm not sure that that would be great that a city councilor could do that. I'm not sure I'm asking what the influence as city council, as a city councilor, you have on those things.
My personal opinion is I think it's really up to the city councilor and how much of an impact you would want to have. I think there are some councilors where their expertise is law. They want to be, that's what they want to focus on. They want to focus on environmental law. They want to focus on land deeds. They want to focus on
and so that's what you bring to the table, since you have an education background.
That's where my passion is, yes.
Okay. So you said you were on the planning board?
Yes.
And you're on 30th and Main? Is it 30th
30
and
and Main?
Sorry, that's terrible. Are you on any other committees? And how would what have you done, or what's some of your accomplishments, I guess,
Sure.
in those in that
I would
arena?
say, in terms of the planning board, one thing that I'm very proud of is I've taken the time to meet with residents who are directly impacted by certain developments. When they were putting in the Walgreens, when that was on our meetings with that, we received emails, from residents in North Beverly who thanked us for taking the time to speak with them. When they were discussing putting an apartment building on 133 Cabot, I worked with some of the residents there and gave them advice and just said, you know, I'm listening to what you're saying. I'm taking it to heart, and they were very receptive to my conversations there. On the Beverly Historical Society, I'm the membership committee. It was my idea yesterday to have a meeting where both mayoral candidates were there, giving them just a very open, informal forum where they can address the crowd, but with the goal of boosting up membership. And if anybody was there last night, I think they would say it was a very big success. So just, you know, like kind of outside the box thinking. I'm a member of the Montserrat Neighborhood Group. I'm a member of the Cove Community Center. My wife says, you know, like, when are you going to come home and see me? Just kind of.
Well, that's a good point, isn't it?
Well, I'm here right now, and she's trying to put Jack to bed. So it's one of those things where I just wanted to become involved. When we decided that we were going to live in Beverly, I decided this is going to be my home, and I want to make my home the best place possible.
What made you decide to live in Beverly?
Liz's family grew up. Liz's mom grew up in North Beverly, and our son Jack is the 5th generation of her family to be born and to live into the city. And I'm just very proud of that legacy that he has, and I feel like that I'm a part of. We found pictures of her grandfather in some of the books of the Beverly Historical Society, and going door to door, there are people that know the McDonald family. You just have this, you know, this small town feel, but we're a city, and that's something to me that is completely unique. I've never experienced anything like that before.
How much time do you think it it will take to be a city councilor? How much more of your time do you feel like you'll have to give?
I think it's like a bank. The more you put into it, the more you're going to take out. Maureen Trubateris, there's a story about her that she shoveled the driveway of a resident that was blocked in, and that's the type of city councilor that I would like to be. The back of my campaign T-shirt, it says "John will go the extra mile," because that's the type of teacher I am, the type of person I am. You could be a good teacher and you can leave at 2:30 or 2:15, but I don't want to be a good teacher. I want to be a great teacher. I'm going to show up early. I'm going to meet with students after school and meet with colleagues and meet with the administration. I don't want to be a good city councilor. I want to be a great city councilor.
Well, what is particular to Ward 4 that you want to work on?
Based on conversations with the residents, like I said before, cooperation, communication with the city. That's on everybody's mind, especially over the past following months. Also, relationships with Endicott students. Those are the two biggest issues. And then I think you see, citywide, the same type of thing. They're concerned about the conditions of the road, the conditions of the sidewalks. People are unhappy with the grading system of the roads. I've had conversations with Michael Collins, and he's spelt it out for me, pretty plain forward, like this is the system that we have. It's understandable why people don't like it. And Mike, to me, in terms of the roads, it's like a kid at the beach. As soon as they're done with one sandcastle, the tide comes, and then you have to start all over again. So I have nothing but respect and pride for what how far some of these roads have come.
So do you feel like you could do something different? Is that what you're saying?
I asked Mike if there's anything that we can do, and he just said, like, no. I think letting people know in plain, simple English, this is why this particular road is being fixed now, while your road is on deck, would be very helpful. I also think that in terms of weekly recycling, that's a gigantic success for us, and I'm very proud of that. I would love to see composting as the next step forward, and I know that there are some other communities nearby that have done that, and I think that if we can do weekly recycling, which people said it couldn't be done, well, here we are today because he had a lot of hard work behind the scenes. I think composting would be the next step.
Okay, well, we're almost out of time. So if you'd like to tell the viewers of your ward why they should vote for you, now's your chance.
Sure. This November is arguably one of the most important elections in our city's history. Something that you have heard and will continue to hear, that we're going to have a new mayor for the first time in a very long time. I think one of the candidates said when Mayor Scanlon was first elected that they were in elementary school or middle school at that time period. What I'm asking everybody in the city, and not just Ward 4 residents, is to look at every single race like it's the most important race in the city. Learn as much as you can about the candidates, and please keep in mind that democracy is not a spectator sport, and that you can be the change that you want to see in the city. Regardless of who you decide to vote for, it's really, really important for you to come out and vote and to try to bring a neighbor, try to bring a friend. I would love to see, I think everybody would love to see that our voting numbers are up at this point in this election. So thank you very much for your time, and I really appreciate your consideration.
Well, thanks so much, John,
You're
for
welcome.
coming.
Thank you
I
very
really
much.
appreciate having you here. This was John Mullady, who is running for Ward 4 City Councilor. And I'm Andi Freedman, and for BevCam, thank you so much for joining us.